Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we're going to be looking at the Battletomes for the Idoneth Deepkin and the Fyreslayers. So, at the time of filming, these were provided to us by Games Workshop for the purpose of our review and sharing them with you guys. And at the time of this video airing, they will be available for pre-order. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to go ahead and break the seal on each of these first. That way we can save a little bit of time. Now, right off the bat, one thing that I love about the new Battletomes, especially, is like the way that they've layered the imaging. So, like, we have a really high gloss image of the Fyreslayer in front, and then everything behind him, since he's the focal point in the image, is kind of more of a matte without the gloss. So it really makes him pop a lot more. I think it was a great idea design wise to do it like that. And then they did the same thing with Idoneth Deepkin. Now, one thing I thought was a little odd in the decision was the fact that they did two order Battletomes in the same release instead of doing like one order and one chaos, or one order and another destruction, or even an undead one. So I thought that was a little bit odd that they would just go ahead and do two, but because they did the recent box set that featured both of these armies, that made sense why they chose these ones. And so, getting started with the Fyreslayers. Now, I know of the Fyreslayers. This is actually my first time ever looking at a Battletome for them. Before that, the closest thing to a Fyreslayer I've really ever dealt with was the Troll Slayers and Giant Slayers from Warhammer Fantasy, and Fire Mages, but nothing that kind of combined the two of them together. So this is definitely very new for me. Gonna definitely take me some time to get through all of the lore because I don't know any of it whatsoever. The only thing I really know is that they traditionally hail from Akshi and more or less worship some sort of fire, or Akshi herself. And so when they go to battle, things are very fiery typically. And then with that recent release, they actually came out with the new Auric Flamekeeper, which they do have on image right here. And then just continuing on, it looks like the lore and the fluff, that all ends on basically page 33. Then we go into a lot of images of different units, heroes, things like that. Now, what I thought was really interesting about Age of Sigmar is that we have multiple elven teams. So we have the Lumineth Realm Lords, the Idoneth Deepkin, and then we have the Daughters of Cain, and then we even have the elves that are part of Cities of Sigmar. And so you have all of these different kind of sub-factions, and then for the dwarves, they only have the ones that go with Cities of Sigmar and the Fyreslayers. I know that with some of the Warcraft stuff, we've seen some the Dwarven, on the side of Chaos, but we haven't really seen any of the dwarves really do anything different other than just those two options. And so I thought that was kind of odd. I'm hoping that we do end up seeing more dwarf units, or armies in the future, because we have multiple undead. We have the vampire counts. Well, I'm drawing a blank on what they're called right now. Soulblight Gravelords. Then we also have the Night Haunt, the Oziark Bone Reapers. So we have multiples right there, and then we also have multiple chaos. Followers of Nurgle. The Maggotkin. We have the Hedonites of Slaanesh. So there's a lot of different sub-factions for all of the different groups, but dwarves have always been just very limited, and so I always thought that was kind of weird. So here on page 50, we do get a nice painting guide so you can actually do your dwarves in the same gold and fire style, and it even shows you how to do the Magmadroth scales the same way that they have them on the Start Collecting box, as well as doing like a fiery cracked earth base, which that is a really good tutorial. I've actually done something similar when I did a lava base a couple years ago for my Chimera. And then we go into the army rules section by page 54. So, looking at it, we're about 2/3 through the book before we actually even get to the rules. Allegiance abilities, like Grimwrath Oaths, Fierce Counterattack, Lodges, Urgold Runes, Blaze of Fury. So we're going to go ahead and go over the Fierce Counterattack. So you can use the command ability at the start of the enemy combat phase. The unit that receives the command must be an Auric Hearthguard, Hearthguard Berserkers, or Volkite Berserkers. Unit that is within 3 inches of an enemy unit that made a charge move in the same turn, and not within 3 inches of any enemy units that have not made a charge move on the same turn. The Strike First effect applies to that unit until the end of the phase. A unit cannot receive this command more than once per battle. So basically, the way I'm reading it is you use a command point, and then you get to, hit your opponents first when they actually are charging you, as long as you're not close to any other enemy units. Then we got some enhancements, artifacts of power, command traits, prayer scriptures, mount traits. So with the prayer scriptures, this is for using Fyreslayer priests. We have the Prayer of Ash, Ember Storm, Prey of Grimnir's Fury, and Wrath of Volcatrix. And so I'm just going to read over the Ember Storm. It's a prayer that has an answer value of 3 and a range of 18. If answered, pick one friendly Hearthguard Berserker or Volkite Berserker unit wholly within range and visible to the chanter. That unit can run and still charge later in the same turn. So basically means that if you're moving, normally you can't charge and move in the same turn. So if you move with that, then you also get to charge. So kind of allows you to clear a much larger distance in order to bring that combat a little bit sooner. And so that's going to definitely come in handy for like when you're in a situation where you're about to face like an overwhelming force and you need to hit them first before they can hit you. And so doing that will definitely mean that you're going to get up closer. You're going to have a better chance of actually hitting them, and maybe eliminate a large number of them before they have a chance to actually attack you instead. Then we have the Path to Glory section, which includes mercenary contracts, vaults of gold. Now, one thing that really stands out about this Path to Glory section is the coloring is very different than what we're used to. Typically it's kind of more of a solid color for the banner, and this one almost looks like, with the color choice, that almost like it's being like corrupted by Nurgle or something. So definitely stands out as an interesting choice. I think it looks great. Don't mistake me there, but the fact that we're used to seeing more of like just a solid color, and then we have this one, makes it stand out a lot more. I'm willing to bet that was like a design change for in between the last Battletome and these, that we're probably going to see something similar going forward. And I bet when we get to the Idoneth Deepkin, we're probably going to see something very similar to this. All right, so, and then we go into our, with Path to Glory, it does include a Magma Hold roster, and I love that they do put in the copyright information on the page, saying that you have permission to print to copy pages like this, so that way you're not having to write it in the book and then having to erase it and use pencil. And then we go into our War Scroll battalions, which includes the Grand Fired, I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to pronounce that, terrain piece with its own rules. And then we go into the match play section, including grand strategies, battle tactics, and then our actual war scrolls for each character and each model. So those were both on the Magma Droths. One's the Auric Rune Father, one's Auric Rune Son, and then the Auric Rune Smiter. Now, looking at them, the models look very similar, and I don't know that I've ever seen different Magma Droths before, so I'm willing to bet that one kit allows you to do each of the three. Now I'm just taking a quick look through here just to see if anything stands out as like a new type of model or a new unit that we haven't seen before, other than the Flamekeeper that was released in that recent army box. But nothing there that stands out as anything new. And then lastly, our pitched battle profiles. Now, again, because I'm not familiar with the army whatsoever, other than just that they exist and seen some of the models, I don't know if any of these points are modified since the last release. I would assume that there is some changes there to the point profiles, but not certain. With Idoneth Deepkin, very much the same thing. I'm familiar with them as an army. I know a little bit of their lore just because of watching Lore Masters on Warhammer Plus, but that was more of the Techless story that they were covering there, and they did highlight on them briefly. But I know I have like one box of units that I received a long time ago. Never ended up doing anything with them. And that was the extent of my Idoneth Deepkin involvement. So still a very new army to me. Now, one thing I love about the Idoneth Deepkin in general is, just their underwater aesthetics. Like, I've always loved stories of like Atlantis and stuff, and so having this army makes me feel like like that would basically be almost like their capital and where they hail from mostly. And so you have a lot of underwater creatures and things like that working with them, since they're they live underwater. And like keeping to that, creatures of the deep, we do have a lot of like kind of underwater monster type imagery along the sides. And then this one, actually, I really like this art. It's the first time I've really seen them do like more of an artistic approach to some of the units. But like whoever they have doing the actual overall art, the painting style, they just do such a fantastic job. Like this one right here, showing some of the army leaders, and goes into some of the detail about the units. Now the lore itself ends on page 41, and then we go into the section about the different units, and so that same box set that had the Thrallmaster also had, the I believe it was Flame Master, has a Thrallmaster now, new unit for the Idoneth. I love that unit itself, mostly just because of the eel that's hanging out with him. And then this Lotan Warden of Soul Ledgers with the octopus. I think that is one of my absolute favorite Idoneth models. I've always wanted to paint him just because of the octopus alone. And then the giant turtle from the Leviathan, or the Alopex. I mean, just some fantastic models that just would be so much fun to paint, but never could justify picking them up for myself just because I don't play this army at all. And then of course we do have the Dueling Claw included in here as well. And then by page 56 we do our painting guide, which on Warhammer Plus they did a actual tutorial on the Idoneth skin recently, and kind of gives it more of a blue than these ones do. And then by page 62 we are finally into the army rules section. And then here, just like I was guessing, we do see the multi-tone banner, like where it says Army Rules, but it is a very different color scheme than in the Fyreslayers box or book. So in this section we have the battle traits, specifically enclaves, forgotten nightmares, tides of death, and rituals. And then we have our enhancements for command traits and artifacts of power, mount traits, and spell lores, enclaves, which leads into the Path of Glory section. So like one of them is the Hunter of Souls, and at the start of the combat phase, if this general is within 3 inches of an enemy hero or unit champion, you can roll a dice. On 3+, the enemy hero or unit champions suffers D3 mortal wounds. So that's actually pretty good. I mean, basically it's kind of like a little sneak attack type thing. And then in Path to Glory, the banners are closer to the single tone, but definitely still a lot more detailed than the previous tomes had. So in Path to Glory we have Quota of Souls, we have a couple quests. One of them is the Shelled Colossus, where you pick one Leviathan and pick one mount trait from the Bond Beast traits table. At the end of Path to Glory battle, you complete this quest if that Leviathan destroyed any enemy units during the battle, and when completed you can add the mount trait you picked to your vault, but it can only be given to the Leviathan you picked when you embarked on this quest. So it basically means that you can actually have some guys mounted on it based on completing that quest. Then we have our veteran abilities, territories, an Idoneth Deepkin name generator. I actually didn't see this in the other book, so that's pretty cool. Gives you some cool names there. And then we have some sea beast familiars. Which a lot of these I've never actually noticed with the models, especially the anglerfish. And then we have a battle plan for Crescendo of Crashing Waves, the Reaping, and then Phalanx. Then we go into our match play section, which is only a single page. It covers the grand strategies and battle tactics. And then we go into our war scrolls for all the different units. Now, I'm more familiar with these units because they are more recent. They actually came out shortly after I first came back to the hobby, where Fyreslayers had actually been out for some time before that. So these ones I got to see the releases as they were coming out. So I'm just going to take a quick glance through, see if anything stands out as ones that I haven't seen before. And so far it looks like just the Thrallmaster is the only thing new that we haven't seen. And I did forget that they have the Gloomtide Shipwreck as well for their own army terrain. And then lastly, our pitched battle profiles. And again, I'm not familiar enough with their points to know if there were any changes there. Definitely worth having. Now, with the Battletomes themselves, you know, I say this with each Battletome and Codex that we receive. My personal belief is that I want to have all of the books in the end, just because of all of the lore that's contained within them, because a lot of it's unique to that army, and so you don't see a lot of overlapping stuff other than just the world itself between Battletomes. And in addition to that, if you're going to be playing actively against other people, like you're more than just playing with somebody in your house. If you're playing the same person every time, they're most likely going to be taking the same army with a couple tweaks here and there as that army expands. And so like if that's the case for you, then definitely recommend picking up the Battletome for the army that you're going to be facing, so that way you can learn what units are available, kind of make some guesses as far as what they're going to bring, so that way you can tailor your list based on what you think they're going to bring, so that way you can combat it specifically. So definitely worth picking up for the lore and for that alone. But of course, if you're playing either of these armies, then these are absolutely a must. The production quality is so much higher than some of the Battletomes we've seen in the past. I know the ones that they were doing last year and the year before for the previous edition, still had a high production value, but most of my experience with the Battletomes and Codexes was from previous versions of the game, where for Age of Sigmar, my experience really even predated second edition and now third edition. So definitely loving getting the chance to read these and make use of them, starting to plan some different armies and try some new things out. So very cool stuff in here. Now I believe that they've announced that there is going to be a Chaos Battletome and then another Order Battletome coming soon. My guess as far as the Order one, it's probably either going to be Daughters of Cain or Lumineth Realm Lords, my guess. Just because of the fact that there's some of the more popular armies out there. Like, I'm honestly surprised to see Idoneth come as one of the first ones coming out, just because of the fact that from what I see online, And at my local store, there's not a lot of Idoneth players comparatively to the armies that are more frequently used. So definitely seemed like an interesting choice. But definitely looking forward to the next round of Battletomes that they send out, or release rather. But definitely some great things in here. Definitely recommend picking these up, and I can't wait to actually crack open the lore and dive into these armies a bit further and learn more about them. But that's it for tonight. Thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll catch you next week.